a major initiative to expand diversity and inclusion in entrepreneurship, invention, and innovation in the US. This is the key to American competitiveness. It also is a timely and important topic for us at Rutgers University. Under the leadership of President Holloway, we're focused on looking to find excellence and innovation everywhere in our diversity of faculty, employees, and students. We've also restructured the Office for Research within Academic Affairs so that we can play a more central role in support of innovation and academic excellence. Today, we're honored to have Mr. Andrei Iancu with us. Mr. Iancu is the U.S. Undersecretary of Commerce for Intellectual Property and Director of the USPTO, the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office. In that role, he is Principal Advisor to the Secretary of Commerce and to the President on all matters involving intellectual property. Prior to joining the USPTO, Mr. Iancu was the Managing Partner at Irell and Manella LLP, where he focused on intellectual property litigation. He has earned 3 degrees from UCLA, a BS in Aerospace Engineering, an MS in Mechanical Engineering, and finally a JD from the UCLA School of Law. We also are going to welcome Elizabeth Dougherty, who is the Eastern Regional Director of the USPTO. Elizabeth will speak to us briefly at the end of the hour. Undersecretary Iancu will speak about the future of American innovation and the role of the university. Dr. Tatiana Litvin-Vechnyak will then lead a discussion with a panel of experts that we have assembled. Mr. Iancu, welcome. We look forward to hearing your insights on where we are and how Rutgers University can help drive innovation and national competitiveness.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Kimball. It's a real pleasure and honor to be with you and your colleagues and everyone at the Rutgers community. I am sorry I couldn't be there in person. I guess nobody is nowadays. It's the way things are, but at least we are lucky enough that we have technology that enables us to get together and communicate anyway in a quite an efficient way. You mentioned that I'll speak about the future of American innovation, and I certainly will, because that is one of the most important issues facing the United States right now as we embark in what some call the fourth industrial revolution. But before I do that, I want to go back and actually talk about the history of American innovation and put things in context a little bit as to how we got here, and discuss really 3 main things before we go to a more open conversation with the panel. So I want to talk about the importance of innovation, the importance of intellectual property to create that innovation, and how to get more of both. And it's that last bit that will focus on the expansion of innovation, the diversity, as you've mentioned in your opening remarks, and the future. But to ground ourselves in in the history of innovation, let's think a little bit about where we are now as compared to where we were when this country was founded some 200 years ago. As I've said, we are lucky enough to be able to communicate instantaneously right now, both by video and audio. Even 10, 20 years ago, this would have been, something absolutely remarkable. But just go back a little bit further to the founding of this country, and any such communication would have been obviously impossible. I would have traveled to you probably by horse and carriage. We would have been meeting in some big hallway, big lecture hall that was lit by candlelight, most likely. And if we had to send a message other than by human, we'd have probably had to send a carrier pigeon or something like that. And on the medical front, if you needed anesthesia for surgery, God forbid, your best bet, and if you're lucky, frankly, would have been a shot of whiskey. And that was really just 200 years ago. Even though human beings have been on this planet for thousands and thousands and million years probably, and humans have been organized in civilization for thousands of years for sure, And yet, the state of the human condition just 200 years ago was basically the same as it was in ancient Rome and ancient Greece, and so on. If you think about it, it took about 2 weeks to get news of the Declaration of Independence from Philadelphia to Williamsburg, Virginia, which was about the same time it took Alexander the Great to send news of his victory from the front in Persia back to his capital in Macedonia in 331 BC. So on all fronts, the amount of progress we have made in the past 200 years has been absolutely unparalleled at any time in history, not even close, or anywhere around the globe. Why is that? What happened 200 years ago to change the human condition and the trajectory of human development so radically? Obviously, lots of things happened, but for our purposes here, I believe the most important event was the US Constitution and the inclusion in it of the Intellectual Property Clause in Article 1, Section 8, Clause 8, which guarantees to authors and inventors the exclusive right for a limited time to their respective writings and discoveries. In other words, the establishment of the modern copyright and patent system, the IP clause. And as a result, we have undergone an explosion of technological growth, the likes of which humanity has never seen. The main reason behind this, the connection between these two, is that for the first time in human history, innovation and protection of innovation was democratized. You didn't have to be friends with the crown. You didn't have to be rich. You didn't even have to have factories. And this created an extremely rapid system of dynamic competition where innovation was built upon innovation to create the growth that we have now. The results are unmistakable. We see them every day. We also can measure them. So we know, for example, that workers in IP-intensive industries make approximately 50% more in wages than workers in non-IP-intensive industries in the private sector. Startups that obtain their first patent increase their employment rate in the following 5 years by 36%. And the impact of that first patent to sales growth is even higher than that. Two out of every 3 new jobs in the United States are created by innovative companies, startup companies. So obviously we can measure, we can touch the results. We also know that they're very important. IP is very important to the individuals that get the IP and participate. It's important to their personal development, career growth, personal satisfaction, and the like. Clearly important to their companies, as I've mentioned, and their communities. And it's absolutely fundamentally important and necessary for the United States as a nation. We live in an increasingly competitive global environment where everybody now is innovating, from the smallest countries to the largest, and everyone in between. So for us to keep competing and maintain our technological edge, it is absolutely important that we innovate at faster and faster rates. I'll give you just a small example. If you measure by US patents, the growth in the United States over the past decade in the areas of technology, of the technologies of the next industrial revolution, so artificial intelligence, biotechnology, autonomous vehicles, and the like, has been in line with our GDP growth, 3-4% year over year. If you look at China, their rate of growth in these areas of technology, again, the fourth industrial revolution, has been year over year 23%. So we have to keep competing. No matter how fast we think we're innovating, we must innovate even more and even faster. The problem is that innovation in the United States is highly concentrated. It is concentrated geographically, it's concentrated demographically and economically. The ultimate result of which is that we are competing with one hand tied behind our backs. I used to say with one hand tied behind our backs. I guess I said it again now. I actually now think we're competing with one hand and four fingers tied behind our backs. Let me explain. We at the USPTO recently did a study, which we published earlier this year, on the participation of women in the patent system. We have found that in 2019, of all the inventors named on US published patent applications, women made up only 13% of those inventors. Now, that is an improvement from the study that we had done previously, which measured up to 2016. In 2016, the number was 12%. So we have definitely moved in the right direction, but we really have a long way to go, and we need to get there much faster. Other studies show that the rate of innovation, again, as measured by US patents for racial minorities, is even lower than that. So that's demographic concentration. Innovation is also concentrated geographically. We know certain geographical areas of concentration. Silicon Valley is a very good example. It's been there for several decades. You in New Jersey are in the middle of another area of geographic concentration on the East Coast. The Research Triangle in North Carolina is another example. And there are a few other pockets around the country. But there are vast swaths of the US geography that is not contributing or participating to the same levels. Innovation is also concentrated economically. In other words, folks from economically disadvantaged communities do not participate to the same levels, irrespective of their demographics and irrespective of their geographical location, which is also something very interesting and but not surprising, and that's yet another form of concentration. So for many reasons, this has to change. It's not easy, and there are many, many issues that go into it, many factors that go into it, and we're going to discuss all of this, I'm sure, during the panel, and we'd love to get the panel's ideas. And at the USPTO, we have lots of activities. Again, we'll discuss them during the program. But one of the most important things we have decided to do that I'd like to highlight here at the beginning is the creation of a national council. We call it the National Council for Expanding American Innovation. Washington loves acronyms, so we have a very handy one, NCEAI, rolls off the tongue. You can look at it. You can look at the NCEAI on our website at uspto.gov. You go there and then you navigate to the dedicated page for the National Council. The National Council has leaders from industry. So we have CEOs and presidents of major companies, from high tech to biopharma to automotive and many others in between. Presidents of universities, government leaders, and others, such as some independent inventors, as well as folks from the finance community. The charge for the council is to help us develop a national strategy to overcome this concentration that I have mentioned in innovation and entrepreneurship, demographically, geographically, and economically. And what I have asked the council to do is to give us their own best practices, their own experiences, but also reach out to the public and receive public input and provide a suggested framework But most importantly, what I have asked them to do is to be very specific. Be specific about where exactly in an inventor's or an entrepreneur's lifespan we lose them from the ecosystem, and what are the specific solutions. Be specific and provide us with measurable ways, with specific ways to measure the results. If you think about an inventor's life from beginning, really at birth or very young, kindergarten, going all the way through high school, college degrees, graduate degrees, employment, innovation in their jobs, obtaining IP, obtaining financing, commercializing the technology. If you think about the entire lifespan, where do we lose various demographics? We probably don't lose them in kindergarten. Children come in equally curious, I think, by and large. But we do begin to lose them probably somewhere in middle school, where some of them no longer think math and science is cool. Or we lose them in higher education environments. Or we lose them in their jobs, or in the patenting system, or in the financing system, or in the commercialization process. Where do we lose them? We need to be specific, because the proposed solutions, which also need to be specific, are going to be different for the different points of an inventor's and entrepreneur's life. And the key to all this, in my mind, is that academia, together with industry and government, both local and federal, need to work together in this trifecta of focused policymaking concentration. And I think if we do that, I think we can at least begin to create a plan for this country to make headway in these important areas. All along, what I think is critically important, all along, from the beginning, when the kids are small, all the way through college, and beyond, through patenting and commercialization, along the entire spectrum, we need mentors and role models so that future inventors can see themselves in others who have come before them and can reach out to them for guidance and inspiration. All inventors need to know about folks like Elijah McCoy, a great African-American inventor from the 1800s, who invented oil for the great transportation boom that took place at the turn of the century and coined the phrase, the real McCoy. All need to know about him. Folks need to know about Jennifer Doudna and Emmanuelle Charpentier, the two all-female team right now that won the Nobel Prize in chemistry, the first time an all-woman team who won the Nobel Prize, and also very active in the patent system. Folks need to know about these individuals and many others like them so that they know that they too can grow up to be like them. And they need to be able to reach out to them, to ask them, how did you do it? And what can I do to do the same, or perhaps even better? And I think universities have a huge role to play on all those fronts. And I look forward to discussing that and much more during the panel. So let me stop there. And I think we'll go now to Dr. Tatiana Litvin to guide us in the panel discussion.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Director Iancu. And it's a pleasure and a true honor to have you join this event, and thrilled to have this important discussion with our panelists. So my name is Tatiana Litvin-Vechnyak, and I'm the Associate Vice President for Innovation Ventures here at Rutgers. And I would like to introduce our panelists now. So Renata Pasqualini is a professor of medicine and chief of the Division of Cancer Biology at the Cancer Institute of New Jersey. Renata is an internationally recognized expert in vascular biology, metastasis, and angiogenesis. Renata is an inventor or co-inventor on nearly 300 patents and applications worldwide, and is also an entrepreneur who co-founded 6 companies. Biju Parikadhan is an associate professor of biomedical engineering. Biju is a founder of Sentien, a clinical stage company focused on ex vivo cell therapeutics, and is also an innovator with 55 patents and applications worldwide. Karen Calvino recently graduated with a PhD from Rutgers and is presently the Chief Technical Officer of Renew CO2, a company based on a technology that Karen co-invented as a graduate student. Elad Mashayev is a medical student at the Robert Wood Johnson Medical School and is the president of Biomedical Entrepreneurship Network. Elad is also an entrepreneur and a co-founder of Silicone Prosthetics. We're thrilled to have all of you with us for this important conversation. So as Director Iancu mentioned, this conversation has been ongoing at the national level, and I'm glad that we're now bringing this discussion to our university. So to set the stage for the panel discussion, what I'd like to do is ask our most experienced innovators on the panel, Renata and Biju, to share with us, based on your personal experience, what is it that you find to be most rewarding about the process of innovating and patenting? Renata?
First of all, thank you. Hello, everybody. Thank you, Dr. Iancu, for your insightful comments, and Tatiana and Dr. Kimball for having me as part of the panel. To address your question in a direct way, from my perspective, I believe that securing intellectual property affords scientists the opportunity to license technology and therefore develop basic discoveries towards relevant translational applications, which might result in novel therapeutic approaches long term. And I can provide a practical example from personal experience. Within our program, after significant preclinical research and a successful round of financing, I co-founded and served as Chief Scientific Officer of a startup biotech, which we named Phage Nova. This company has prioritized a targeted gene delivery vector that selectively localizes to tumors upon intravenous administration. Is a very exciting platform for drug delivery and gene delivery. Over the past 3 years, we have been through a transformative evolution in the sense that, number one, we secured lab space for the company over in New Jersey at the campus of Bristol Myers Squibb, which has a phenomenal facility, extremely well equipped. And we accelerated substantially our manufacturing capabilities and the investigation on new drug enabling work, which will be presented to the FDA short term, hopefully within the beginning of 2021. And I must say that leading a program that really will rapidly evolve towards first in human studies as we evaluate this vector for safety and biological endpoints in patients has been incredibly appealing. And we do look forward to bringing additional advances to science and medicine by implementing the next stages of development. And this is just one among many endeavors which rely on the enormously supportive environment which this provides to entrepreneurial faculty.
Sure.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Iancu, for joining us and everybody else on the panel. It's an honor to be here. I wanted to describe what's so rewarding by making the analogy of inventorship and, let's say, parenthood, or even owning a pet, because there's a lot of similarities to the two processes. So when someone discovers something or invents something, what's immediately obvious is that it's the moment where something that's never been seen before has now emerged into the world. And it's a very, very exciting time. but there's also an important responsibility to shepherd that invention through morally and ethically and responsibly. And one of the approaches to protect that new idea, that new creation, is to patent that work. And now, at that early stage of discovery, what I've realized is in academic positions, that discovery sometimes is so embryonic that you don't even really know what it looks like as a fully formed product, as a fully formed adult, let's say. And so the second part of what's rewarding is really thinking through that process. What actually does this invention look like in a commercial state? And so begins a new type of ideation process, and really the translational science, the studies that Dr. Pasqualini was describing, to take that early discovery and form it and mold it into something that can be useful for the public. And so begins a fairly long journey in biotechnology of preclinical studies and even clinical studies to demonstrate the utility of this invention. The third rewarding aspect is that these inventions, in particular biotechnology, that have medicinal aspects, those inventions give back. They give back in financial terms, but more importantly, just last week, the company that I co-founded, Sentient, just treated their first COVID patients. That brought me more joy than any other step along the way. And the final stage of that's kind of rewarding is all of the people and environments and new interactions that I've had the honor to be a part of while shepherding this young little baby creation all the way through now to a clinical stage product. And I think it's those people and they are non-scientific in nature, just interaction with the business community, the legal community, regulatory. That's been such a rewarding aspect to myself to broaden my network so that I can kind of renew this inventive spirit again with a lot more precision and a lot more intention in the future.
Thank you both. And this is certainly the sentiment that I think will resonate with many in the audience. This concept of societal impact for the greater human good, I think, is exactly why we do what we do. So New Jersey is one of the most diverse states in the nation, and yet even in New Jersey and at Rutgers, the demographic breakdown of innovators and patentees is not representative of the diversity of our institution, our state, and our nation. And Director Iancu, you mentioned the National Council, you mentioned the research that folks on your team have done looking into some of these issues, and I'm hoping you can share your findings. What are some of the barriers or challenges to fostering diversity and inclusion among the innovator community?
Yeah, it's a very good question, and let me get into it. But if you don't mind, Bijou mentioned something, and also Renata, that I want to pose back a question, and you guys can answer it a bit later. There is a huge debate that's going right now in the public space, and for sure on university campuses, but really everywhere, including the halls of Congress and also internationally at the WHO and elsewhere. And that is the question between intellectual property protection and access to critical medicines. So for you, Bijou, for example, you're working on COVID-19 therapies. You're getting IP protection, I presume, on those therapies, similar to many other therapies. Some argue, well, shouldn't all that be freely available to the whole world in equal access? Some argue that the IP protections create a barrier to that type of access. And what's the response to that? Perhaps we can spend a minute on that. I don't know, it's up to you, but I find that is like the hottest topic right now, and I find it very interesting.
Yeah, it's a fantastic question. And we think about that a lot because Sentient's a small company. So in parallel with testing this clinically and first and foremost demonstrating that it's safe and effective, we are aggressively pursuing strategic partnerships to enable access around the globe to this treatment if it is deemed safe and effective. So there's a lot of different levers that are being driven all at once. And again, the value of patenting, it can be a barrier, but it all depends on the spirit of the company. And I can speak on behalf of Sentient, where we really want to see this product out there and distribute it as much as possible, if again, it is effective. And so we look at it as an opportunity for licensing, for partners that are much more savvy than we are, that have distribution channels to places that we don't. We look at it as an opportunity to work together. And we've opened lines of communication to so many different organizations at this point. A lot of them are starting to bear fruit, and we hope that sort of industry partnership can continue to take place beyond this pandemic and for other medicinal products as well. So I think it's a great point to make.
Yeah, for whatever it's worth, we don't see any evidence of IP acting as a barrier to access right now. To the contrary, all the evidence is, as you've indicated, that IP is facilitating worldwide collaboration to a level that's been unprecedented. And so far, the voluntary collaboration between entities has been absolutely remarkable. IP facilitates that. It takes a lot of money, as you know, it takes a lot of time and investment to create any of these technologies. And in order to transfer them out, to be able to license them, to be able to collaborate with bigger companies, it's very difficult to do without IP protection. In fact, it's probably impossible. So anyway, I'm sorry, Tatiana, to hijack the discussion for a minute, but this is a very hot topic. To answer your question in terms of statistics, I've in some of the studies, I've mentioned the study about women inventors that we have done. Let me give you a remarkable subset of that study. By the way, the whole study, I recommend to everyone to take a look at it. It's on our website. It's called Progress and Potential. It was published earlier this year in 2020. So women make up a little bit more than 50%, call it 50% of the United States workforce across the board. Okay, that makes some sense. However, when you come to science and technology jobs, STEM jobs, women make up only 28% of jobs in the United States. So already we have a gap that needs to be bridged, and there are many factors that go into that to bring more gender parity to the STEM workforce. Okay, but there are many issues that go into there, education and so on. But the most interesting finding from our study, which is we're the patent office, so we're focused on patents, is that even though women make up 28% of STEM jobs, they make up only 13% of inventors named on patents. And what does that mean? That means that women are innovating, again, as measured by US patents, at about half the rate as their male counterparts. And this is across industries and across the geography. We see this everywhere. So in biopharma, for example, women are actually a higher percentage of the job market. They're approaching 50%. It's like 45% or so. Yet they make up only about 26% of inventors named on patents. Again, about half. So this is across the United States, across industries. What does this mean? So this means that of the women who are already trained, So these are folks who they have the degrees. Beyond that, they're actually hired. They're in the seats, in the companies. And yet, there is a 2-to-1 gap when it comes to innovation, again, as named on US patents. What's the cause for that aspect of it? So this is no longer an education issue. It's no longer a hiring issue, because, as I said, they're already in the seats. I don't know the answer to that. That's part of the study that we want the National Council to do, but I can speculate. But there are lots of things that go into that, so I prefer not to speculate. But we have to look at, are they given the same opportunities to be on the front lines of innovation in their respective jobs? Are they given the credit once the innovations are being made? Beyond that, as the lawyers on this and the inventors on this meeting know, it costs a lot of money and it's hard to get a patent. You have to fight for it. You know, those examiners at the USPTO can be dogged in the examination process. You have to stay with it. Are the companies and their lawyers staying with it to the same extent for women applicants as they are for their male counterparts? Don't know the answer to any of those questions. But those, we need to be specific and systematic in the analysis. Let's identify everywhere along this path where we are falling short. And once we have that identification made, then we can propose solutions.
Thank you. And at Rutgers, we recently started looking at the demographics and the breakdown of the patentees and applicants. So we're going to be looking long-term at who applies for patents, who stays with it, and who ends up with issued patents. We are working hard to educate our community about the process, hoping to demystify the process, make ourselves known and available to all innovators, you know, no matter the background. So, but I wanted to follow up with a question to the panelists. You know, in preparation for this discussion, we talked about what may be some of the issues and what may be some solutions. So what do you think are some of the steps that universities like Rutgers could take to address these challenges and expand diversity and hopefully ensure inclusive innovation and equity in innovation? Elad?
Yes, so I think that from my perspective as a medical student, there are multiple avenues that universities can take to increase diversity and inclusion in innovation. Primarily, there are changes that can be made to the curriculum itself to increase student exposure to innovation from the very first year of their education. So for example, creating a focused innovation course or an innovation track will allow universities to not only reach students that are already interested in innovation, already expressed interest, but also many other underrepresented students who have not had any prior experience with innovation. And a vital component of the innovation course should be research, since it is the basis of all innovation. And the problem that we face these days is that research is currently an elective component of the education. And this sort of creates a tough situation where the incentives for research and innovation are not aligned with the academic goals. So an innovation course will serve as twofold. It will teach students in a didactic manner about various aspects of innovation, not only how to come up with an invention, but also patenting, raising capital, the regulatory aspects, and also enable for the incentives to be better aligned with the goals of broadening innovation. And students will essentially be equipped with the tools to innovate while fulfilling their academic responsibilities.
Karen, I wanted to turn to you. Your recent graduate recently went through graduate school at Rutgers and now with a company. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, so I was born in Brazil, was raised there with a culture where talking about yourself, about your qualifications, about your achievements is bad. It's just arrogant. And being a woman, this was even more enforced. So basically, when I started in this journey of entrepreneurship, I actually heard from mentors that not talking about my qualifications was undermining my ability to confidently talk about my company, about my, about the difference that we were going to make. So for me, having mentors that can bring up those things that are super normal to you in a candid and compassionate way, and just make you aware so you can make adjustments as needed and guide you through this path that sometimes we don't even know where to start. So having these mentors that can help us along the way has been incredibly important to me.
And we certainly have to ask a faculty member, Bijou, what are your thoughts on what the universities could do here?
Yeah, I'll speak to two aspects, both of which I think could be better incentivized. So the first is really at the faculty level, how to incentivize innovation in a promotion-based way. So right now, as instructors become assistant professors and all the way up the chain, on those tenure review committees, patents aren't necessarily factored in. Typically, it's publications, service to the community, and education. But could patents, and it's certainly a hard metric. Could patents be part of the evaluation, the broad evaluation? But could it be part of the evaluation, including licensed patents, perhaps new ventures that have emerged from them? There's a lot of effort from an academic innovator that goes into that it feels a little bit difficult that that's not evaluated in a promotional way. The other thing that faculty can do, and again, incentivizing this is maybe a broader question, but to go out into the community, go out to these demographics that are hard to reach, and have town halls, demystify this process a little bit more. There's a lot of great ideas all the way, as the director said, from kindergarten. They're probably one of the best inventors out there. And to learn the simple steps and, perhaps find ways to facilitate from a financial standpoint, those young innovators to get into the process and learn about it. That's going to require effort as well for us to go out to these communities as we learn about them and educate outside of the walls of our university, and we can do that. And I think these are some ways that we can, as a faculty, make effort to improve diversity and inclusion.
Yeah, no, I think those are all really great. And we heard about changing the curriculum, mentoring, and those are also some of the things that Director mentioned earlier. And in preparing for this event, I actually went to the USPTO website to see what are some of the initiatives there. I don't know if Director, you want to mention, I saw things like toolkits that educators can use to get into some of this stuff. I thought they were terrific.
Well, yes, and I don't want to steal Elizabeth's thunder. Elizabeth is our regional director for the eastern states, including New Jersey, and she'll talk about the details. But yes, on our website we have an expanding innovation site, and we have a toolkit. It's precisely labeled demystifying the patent system. And we have lots of other help in your region for inventors and the like. So, but anyway, I will let Elizabeth address all of those things. Let me pick up on a couple of points made by the panelists. I can't emphasize enough how important Elad's point was about the curriculum. Everybody talks, so there's a lot of talk around the country about STEM education. And that's really good and it's important. And we have to provide equal access to STEM education to all demographics across the geography of the United States. And that's a big job. We're not anywhere close to doing that yet. And we have to work on it. As I said, many people talk about it. But what very few people talk about is a lot more, which is we need innovation and entrepreneurship education on top of STEM education, separate from STEM education. There needs to be a separate track. And by the way, it's important to have it at the university level, but it really has to start in kindergarten or first grade. Just like we teach everyone math and English along the way from the beginning, history, they need to learn innovation. And there are schools that do that. I participated in programs in kindergarten, and they were phenomenal, these little 5-year-old inventors. And we can spend a whole day describing that experience. It's just absolutely moving and really important. That's what, if we do that as a nation, at every grade level, in increasing ways, a little bit harder in the first grade, second grade harder, and so on, and in every school across the country, we would go a long way towards solving this issue. What I think is really important to realize is that universities play a critical role, not just in their own curriculum, which they obviously do. They need to offer these courses for their own students. But universities can play a huge role in the development of the lower schools' curricula on this issue in their neighborhoods. And as Bijou mentioned, going out to the community, whether it's town halls, but you have built in on your campuses mentors and role models. There is no other institution that has a higher concentration of mentors and role models than a university campus. It's built in. Take it out in a systematic way. Have a program. Incentivize the professors. Reward them to go out and expose themselves and their successes to the broad-based community. And to Karen's point, making sure that everybody feels good about innovation. We need to give the example that Renata has, that all of you have, of what you have accomplished and how good you feel about it, how proud you are about it. Let others absorb that. It makes a huge difference. Just like the athletes, make a huge impact on the young ones and the musicians, which is great, but so do the scientists and the inventors need to do the same in their communities.
Thank you. Couldn't agree more. So we actually have a couple of interesting questions from the audience. If you don't mind, maybe we could go there, and then maybe Elizabeth could tell us more about some of the regional resources, and then we'll close out with one final question for everyone. So one question from the audience: how is the USPTO preparing itself to evaluate patent applications that come from cross-discipline research efforts? From an outsider perspective, the art unit model seems siloed and may not be the best model as novel innovations emerge from the combination and collaboration between the traditional scientific cohorts.
Boy, what an insightful question for many reasons. One of the most insightful points of the question is that the technology space is changing rapidly. Everybody talks about new areas of technologies like 5G and artificial intelligence and biotechnology. What people need to understand in addition to all that is that there's great convergence of technologies. And the convergence of technologies is what's actually fueling the most rapid growth. So if you think about the biotech sphere, biotech is advancing so quickly right now. I can't believe I'm saying these things with the actual experts here on the panel, but you can correct me if I'm wrong. It's the combination of the great advances in the sciences, you're understanding the biology really well now, together with huge computational advances, with the computers and the algorithms and the machines being able to churn the DNA analysis at a much, much faster rate that enables this technology to take place. And there's lots of other convergences like that. So in the biotech is a very good example of, you have biology and you have computer science. Which art unit do you send it to? So precisely because of this, we have just now, literally as of October 1 of this year, gone through a very significant reorganization of the patent office, the first such major reorganization in decades, that includes, among other things, the intelligent routing of applications. So there is an algorithm that will study the incoming application and will make certain determinations to send it to the correct examiner, independent of art unit and the like, who is most knowledgeable about this particular area. And the examiners, in some instances, are cross-trained in areas, but sometimes it needs to be routed to multiple examiners, and that can take place as well. But it's a function of this new routing system that we have, the training that we have, and the experience and expertise we expose our examiners to. We put them out in touch with the companies that they actually that are in the actual field that they're examining in, to receive this training directly from the field. Anyway, it's an excellent question, and we're attending to it as we speak.
Great, thank you. One other question that I think will segue nicely into what Elizabeth will be talking about. Hello from a fellow from Bucharest and Rutgers alumni.
Yay.
How does the average Joe bring ideas and innovations to fight the pandemic? Any broadcasting of the incentives, resources, and assistance available for that average Joe in order to bring that idea and innovation forward to reach the right group in order to get it implemented and fight COVID?
Was that for me, Tatiana, or should we go to Elizabeth?
Either one.
And I want to know from the questioner, if the average Joe, if he's Romanian, is it the average Ion in Romania? Well, let me start, and Elizabeth, please jump in. So with respect to COVID in particular, we have at the USPTO website, again, uspto.gov, you will see a COVID-19 resource center. And you go to that page, and all of the COVID-19 related information is collected there. We have many programs, but let me just mention two of them. One is accelerated examination for COVID-19 related patent applications, where we promise to get to a final resolution within 6 months of application, and that is much faster than the average we have of about 24 months if you qualify for this program. The second program that we have, we call Patents for Partnership, where inventors with patents or published patent applications on COVID-19 can voluntarily list their patents on in this database, which is searchable, and those who want to license that technology, or they need to make connections with particular areas of technology and inventors in those areas, can reach out to those inventors that have made themselves known on that website. So anyway, these are just a couple of examples. Elizabeth?
Thank you. And just to round out that question, as the directors indicated, there is the COVID-19 Response and Resource Center, and it's got a great wealth of resources. There are additional accelerated programs for both trademarks and the Patent Trial and Appeal Board, which I would draw people's attention to as well. But to take the opportunity to talk about some of the other USPTO resources, I'm pleased to have the opportunity to join the director today in addressing you. And my thanks to David and Tatiana for putting together such a robust program. My congratulations to our inventors and entrepreneurs who are featured here today for their remarkable achievements. As Director Iancu has acknowledged, New Jersey is known for its rich history, creative minds, and business acumen. Rutgers University itself has served as an educational cornerstone for invention. Take, for example, National Inventors Hall of Fame inductee Peter Schultz. After receiving his PhD from Rutgers, Schultz went on to join Corning, where he worked with co-inventors to develop optic fiber, which has become ubiquitous to our world and certainly used today in this very event. Likewise, Ukrainian immigrant Selman Waxman. Waxman studied at Rutgers and went on to revolutionize medicine and save the lives of countless tuberculosis patients with streptomycin, a powerful antibiotic. Royalties from his patents generated enormous profits, enabling Waxman to establish and fund the Waxman Institute of Microbiology at Rutgers University and the Foundation for Microbiology. Who knows which one of you will be next, creating and building a better world through invention and entrepreneurship. To help you do it, the USPTO stands ready to assist. We encourage you to visit us at www.uspto.gov, where, as Tatiana acknowledged, you find many resources available on our web pages, particularly those in your state and region. I encourage your entrance into the website by visiting the Learning and Resources pull-down tab, where you'll find many introductory materials, especially designed for inventors and startups. Find our materials on demystifying the patent system found under the heading of Expanding Innovation, our conversation today. Attend one or many of our free virtual educational events. There are 10 this month alone. Now, for those of you who need assistance in the process, particularly in the financial arena, take advantage of the New York Tri-State Pro Bono program, providing free legal services to qualifying applicants. Alternatively, New Jersey inventors and entrepreneurs can obtain free legal help with regards to trademarks right there at Rutgers Law School Clinic. Visit the Library of Science and Medicine at Rutgers University or the Newark Public Library to obtain assistance in patent and trademark searching. Additionally, consider participating in a local inventors organization where you can learn firsthand from others who have walked through the process. One is close by, the National Society of Inventors, which meets in Roselle Park, New Jersey. I'd also encourage you to consider applying to work for the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office. We want to be considered an employer of choice and in fact have a number of graduates from Rutgers who serve in our over 13,000 person population of employees. There's currently 12 USPTO jobs being advertised right now, as well as our summer extern program. As a student summer extern, you'll receive practical experience by engaging in a variety of diverse and challenging activities. We welcome you to come and join us and to learn about intellectual property firsthand. And last but not least, I would encourage you to consider me and my team in the Eastern Regional Outreach Office, your individual Siri or Alexa, as an entrance into the office on how to get started in intellectual property. We can be reached at 571-272-7100 and at Eastern Regional Outreach Office at uspto.gov. You're also welcome to reach out to me on LinkedIn. We're truly in this together. Come be a part of the innovation ecosphere. Thank you for having us today.
Thank you, Elizabeth. And thank you, Director Iancu. Unfortunately, it appears that we're out of time, but there are so many terrific questions. And that only means one thing, that we will need to continue with this type of discussion, continue with these events. And we're certainly looking forward to that at Rutgers. Just to add one more resource, obviously at Rutgers, Innovation Ventures team, which is my team, which is part of the Office of Research. We are a resource to the entire Rutgers community and our colleagues. And we're happy to work with all of our great innovators on anything that you come up with. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Director. I don't know if you have any final closing remarks.
Well, given the time, let me just say it's been an honor to be with you all. Thank you for having me and Elizabeth on with you and the panelists. You have an amazing program, and I really wish I could have been there in person, but I look forward to the day where we can meet again in person and continue the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's been an honor to have you with us today. And as I mentioned, for those of you who are interested in continuing this dialogue on the Rutgers side, we're going to be following up with some emails. In the meantime, feel free to reach out to us. The email is inclusiveinnovation@research.rutgers.edu, and we look forward to the next events. Thank you all.